With Doubtnut, get instant video solutions to all your maths, physics, chemistry, and biology doubts. Just click the image of the question, crop the question, and get instant video solution. Download Doubtnut app today.
Hello students, the question says, estrogens stimulate the proliferation of the endometrium of the uterine wall during. Given options are menstrual phase, follicular phase, luteal phase, or ovulatory phase. All right. So over here, we will be discussing about the menstrual cycle in females, right? That starts with the menstrual phase, right? Menstrual phase is the starting of menstrual cycle in females, right? So menstrual flow occurs for how many days? If we talk about the menstrual flow, so it occurs for 3 to 5 days, right? This is due to, or this results due to breakdown of endometrial lining, of uterus. Correct? So the endometrial lining and the blood vessels of uterus breaks, then the menstrual flow starts. Now menstruation only occurs if released ovum is not fertilized. Now when this menstrual flow occurs, it occurs only when released ovum is not fertilized. Okay. Now menstrual phase is followed by what comes after this menstrual phase. That phase is known as follicular phase. Okay. Follicular phase that occurs after the menstrual phase. Now during this phase, what happens? That primary follicles in ovary they start growing. Okay, they grow and they form a fully mature Graafian follicle. Okay, what do they form? They form a fully mature Graafian follicle. And simultaneously, the endometrium of uterus also regenerates. Okay, while they are forming the Graafian follicle, so the endometrium of uterus also it regenerates through what? Through proliferation. So now these changes in ovary and uterus are induced by the changes in the levels of pituitary and ovarian hormones. Now what causes these changes? They are due to the hormones. And what are those hormones? Those are pituitary and ovarian hormones. All right. Now these hormones results in the changing of these primary follicles in ovary start growing in Graafian follicle, and the endometrium of uterus starts regenerating through proliferation over here. Okay. Now there is a secretion of gonadotropins. Okay. Those are luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone, right? So now they start increasing, and gradually during the follicular phase, they start increasing and stimulate the follicular development. Now, what do they do? These hormones stimulate follicular development. Okay, all right. Now, they stimulate the follicular development, and also they secrete estrogens by growing follicles. Okay, now both luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone attain a peak level in the middle of the cycle. That is about the 14th day of the menstrual cycle. Okay, so now when they attain the peak in the middle of the cycle, so that changes the luteinizing hormone, like that when so attaining the peak of the secretion, that is known as the luteinizing hormone surge over here. All right, so when these hormones attain peak, who attains the peak? These hormones. That level is known as luteinizing hormone surge. Okay, now what this surge does, it induces rupture. It induces rupture of Graafian follicle. All right. Okay. Now this induces the rupture of Graafian follicle and thereby the release of ovum, or the third phase, that is known as ovulation or ovulatory phase, it starts. Okay. So when there is a rupture in the Graafian follicle, what happens? That there is release of ovum, that is known as ovulation or ovulatory phase over here. All right. Now this ovulatory phase or ovulation, it is followed by the last phase, that is known as luteal phase. Now in this luteal phase, during this, the remaining parts of the Graafian follicle they transform. Okay, so in the luteal phase, what happens? That the remaining part of Graafian follicle transform as or they develop into corpus luteum. All right. Now this corpus luteum secretes a large amount of progesterone. Okay. What does this corpus luteum does? It secretes a large amount of progesterone. Now this progesterone is essential for the maintenance of the endometrium. Why it is essential? It helps in the maintenance of endometrium. All right. Now this endometrium is necessary for what? Why this endometrium is required? What is the use of this endometrium? This endometrium is necessary for the implementation of fertilized ovum. All right. For implementation of fertilized ovum. Okay. that is in the follicular phase. So when we were discussing about the follicular phase over here, so we discussed that over here the Graafian follicles are developed, right? The ovary grows into the Graafian follicle, and also the endometrium of uterus regenerates through the proliferation. Okay, so over here it is important, like, so the endometrium is important for the implementation of the fertilized ovum that was happening in the follicular phase. Now, when follicles were developing in follicular phase, they produced estrogen, right? That stimulates the endometrial growth. So we discussed over here that, yeah, so in follicular phase, we discussed that when the follicles were developing into the Graafian follicles, so they were releasing estrogen, right? Which is important for the, or which stimulates the endometrial growth over here, right? We discussed this over here. So now if we talk about the options given over here, so it in the question it is asking that estrogen stimulate the proliferation of the endometrium of the uterine wall during which phase? So it was happening in the follicular phase, right? From the given options, our option number 2 becomes the correct answer. I hope I have solved the question. Thank you.
For class 6 to 12, IIT JEE and NEET level. Trusted by more than 5 crore students. Download Doubtnut app today.